Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I am Justin Mason, joined as always by Dave McDonald. Happy Home Run Derby Day, Dave.
Thanks, man. As I'm sitting here, not even paying attention to All-Star Week festivities at all.
Do you like? I care very little about the All-Star break activities. It's honestly like a really nice time for me because it gives me the opportunity to get a catch up on other work and get a few days off because like I don't have to like write. Like I wrote something for Fangraphs this morning, and I put like a home run derby prediction, but it was ridiculous predictions. I doubt you saw it, but it was like, Albert Pujols is going to strike out multiple times. Julio Rodriguez is going to tap the steal bases in between home runs. Things like that. Like I mean.
Somehow Esteury Ruiz is going to steal 10 bags this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Just weird stuff. I'll watch it if it's on. Like my brother-in-law who lives with us, turned on the home run derby tonight, and I watched for a little bit, but like I could not care less. I really couldn't.
I just don't even know anymore what the schedule of things are. Like, it's not that it's not fun to watch and whatever. I don't know, for whatever reason, I think I'm just baseballed out. Like you, I want that break. I want to take those days off when I have them, where I'm not completely focusing on baseball. As I'm writing all of our show notes for today. But that aside, I'm getting a little break. But I did get a text from my boy Marcus, who said that some bettor at Caesars put down $54,000 on Kyle Schwarber to beat Albert Pujols in round one at negative 360. So he was betting $54,000 to win $15,000. And I'm guessing by the fact that he sent this to me that Pujols won.
Pujols is in the finals. I mean, I think either the finals are going on as we speak or may have just finished. But it was Pujols versus Julio Rodriguez. I did a home run pool. I did not have either of those guys making it out of the first round. So like, what the fuck do I know?
I did see John Anderson said that the best bet was on Julio Rodriguez to win.
Mm-hmm.
His odds were. So hey, good call by him, it looks like. But yeah, guys, don't betting on negative 360 is rarely a good idea, no matter how much of a guarantee you think it is, especially not when it comes to something like the home run derby, where it's not even like in a competitive environment. Yeah. Like fucking anything can happen in the home run derby. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like no one. And I mean, they put Pujols in there just for the hell of it, because it'll be fun and it probably his last opportunity. And that was a poor decision by him. Speaking of things that I'm catching up on, I've been working on the schedule and everything for Potapalooza. Potapalooza is coming up this weekend. You can watch it in all the same places you're watching right now if you are watching live: YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter. I'm going to be streaming from I believe 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern to 5 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. Some of the best people in the industry coming on. Dave not included because he is going on a vacation. But we are going to talk a whole bunch of fantasy baseball stuff, and we're going to raise money for charity. We're raising money for Big League Impact, which is an organization that pairs up with Major League Baseball players to support a bunch of different causes around the country. If you want to donate, you can donate via PayPal, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com, or Venmo at Justin Salinger. And every dollar that you donate gets you a raffle ticket to win really, really cool prizes. T-shirts, subscriptions to sites, things like TGFBI entries. For every $1,000 we raise, we're going to get to a TGFBI entries. A lot of really cool prizes. We even had someone who's in the industry, owns a pet store. He's going to donate up to $100 or $100 gift card for like dog food and pet stuff, like just some cool bobbleheads, things like that. Some really cool prizes being given away this year. So come watch. If you aren't able to watch live, you can still win prizes as long as you donate. And you can watch later either on YouTube or Twitch, or you can hear it in podcast form on the TGFBI podcast feed. So yeah, Potapalooza is going to be a lot of fun this weekend. So definitely come on out if you aren't doing anything. Let's jump in and talk some baseball because we got a fair amount to cover. We're gonna talk about some volume matchups that we might want to attack this short week. Some starting pitcher streamers, some stashes, some strategy stuff. But let's start with some news. Mike Trout to the IL. He's going to miss the All-Star game and a little bit of time. Rib inflammation. As Richard reported, his back spasms apparently is not that. How worried are you about this with Mike Trout?
Not that. I mean, really with Mike Trout, it's about the lower half of his body that I'm more concerned with. Anytime I see something with his legs related, I'm much more concerned based on his recent injury past. This isn't so much concerning as it is odd, like that it was reported as back spasms and it was rib inflammation. Like, how do you get those two things mixed up? I don't know. So I don't know how that happened, but it sounds like he shouldn't miss too much time. Like, he should be back probably around when he's first eligible, I would assume.
Maybe it's a back rib, one of the back ribs, and that was the issue or something. Like, I don't know. I never like hearing back, so that it's a rib issue and not a back issue, that makes me feel a little bit better because I never like hearing about back issues with players. Not overly worried. Trout has been fantastic this year and stayed healthy. Both of you and I kind of faded him this year because of his health history in the last few seasons. It's looking a little foolish, but you trust the process. You're going to hit more than you're going to miss.
Yeah, it's also that he doesn't run, and he hasn't. So it was taking an injury-prone guy who also doesn't run. It's not like I didn't know that he was good, but like, even if you're going to take him over, say, Yordan Alvarez, what was the advantage of taking him over Yordan? If you're going to take, you can get Yordan later, and he's, in my opinion, already better. So I just, it was just a thing where it just didn't make sense to take Trout where he was going, in my opinion.
That's fair. I mean, I would disagree a little bit in kind of the premise. I mean, Yordan's had arthritic knees already. I don't know that he's necessarily better. I think he's probably just as good. Younger, I guess you get. You're more likely to stay healthy if you're younger. But he's already got chronic knee issues, which scares the hell out of me. Whereas as I faded him, that one's looking stupid as well. Only place I got him was in the tag team league. That's because Shelly left him.
We're only halfway through the year, Justin. We're only halfway through the year.
There's plenty more time for me to look stupid. Chris Sale got hit with a comebacker on Sunday and broke his finger. He says he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, you've got to pretty much mark him down for at least 6 weeks and probably end of the season, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think even if he comes back, I think he'll be back, but I think it'll be for the playoffs. Like the Red Sox are probably not going to need him to make the playoffs, and I mean, I think they're just going to be focusing on getting him back for that. I can't imagine with a broken finger that he's going to be able to come back any sooner. And like when you hear about a guy come back in September, you don't want to hold the guy right now. Like, it's not worth stashing guys until September. You're looking at guys. The only kind of guys you want to stash are guys who are coming back like early, maybe mid-August. Like, anything past that is such a crapshoot, and you don't know what you're getting. Pitchers have to build back up. Plans change. Teams shut guys down early. There's so many things that happen come September. It's a completely different game, as I say every year, than it is for the first several months of the year. So he's a guy who I had in a few places, and I dropped him because it's just it sucked because first start back, he looked like the Chris Sale of old. Stuff was crisp. The Villar was there. He looked really, really good. And then to just have this fluke thing happen, and it just sucks.
Yeah, it's a huge bummer. I pretty much just par for the course for my barf team. Just finally get Chris Sale back. He looks good, and yeah, he's back out. I didn't drop him yet, but I
had him in Barf too. So we both represented Earth with Sale.
Yeah, gonna get a whole 8 innings or whatever we got out of him for the year. But yeah, he's gonna be dropped for me at the next fat period. I didn't drop him at this one, just kind of holding on to see exactly what was going on. But yeah, you've pretty much nailed it right on the head, right? Like, we think he's gonna be back in 4 to 6 weeks. Usually like to kind of rule on the cautious side of that, which means 6 weeks, which means the end of August. And one setback, he had a setback when he was coming back from the rib issue, right?
Yep.
You know, and then all of a sudden you're looking at mid-September. What if he's only a 2 or 3 inning guy at that point, anyways?
Yep.
Like it's just not worth holding
No.
on to a guy like that. Harold Ramirez breaks his thumb. This pretty much means he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks as well. You're dropping him anywhere you got him, right?
Yeah, I don't have him anywhere, but he's not good enough to hold. I mean, if you're smashing guys, they have to be definite impact players at this point.
Yeah, the only place I've got him are TZ leagues where I can't drop him. Yordan Alvarez. Speaking of Alvarez and injuries, he has got some hand inflammation. He took some swings with a bat today. How worried are you on Alvarez?
I don't own him anywhere, but it doesn't sound overly concerning. It sounds like he'll probably be back pretty much either. It sounds like he could even be back like when they start back up or maybe shortly after. So I know he's been out since like I think the 10th. So I don't think he'll miss too much more time. That's I haven't looked into it too in depth though because I just don't have him anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't sound overly serious. Just something, and like I said, he was taking swings and doing batting practice today. So it sounds like he should be fine on back up pretty quickly, if not back right again this weekend. Frankie Montas may start on Thursday. Are you rolling him out first time around?
I have to look at what the matchup is. Do you remember who they play?
I can look it up real quick as you talk.
I don't remember. I mean, basically, guys who are coming back, especially from a longer injury. Not that this was super long, but I try to sit them the first start back regardless. But because it's a short week and I might not have many options, if it's against a really weak offense, I might consider it.
Thursday would be a doubleheader versus the Tigers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a situation where I probably will start him then because even at his worst, the Tigers are a really tasty matchup for him. But honestly, there's a lot of guys I would start over him, even versus the Tigers. But because it's a short week, a lot of guys aren't going to get a start in the short week. And I'd start him over taking a 0 for sure.
Yeah, this was a really good time to load up on weird streamers or relief pitchers just for the short week. That's what I ended up rostering a bunch of potential closing candidates that we'll be talking about here in a little bit, just on the off chance they might get a save or a weird win in this short week, and then I can hold them until the trade deadline. Daniel Lynch, he goes back to the IL with a blister issue. This one is a bummer because I had not seen this news and I picked him up. I only spent $1 on him, but still $1 wasted.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long he's out for. I told you a while ago, I think it was when we had Michael Waterloo on. I just don't trust Daniel Lynch for this year. I think he's going to be good in the future, but he's not someone I'm interested in owning this year whatsoever. He's just super inconsistent. You can see that the talent's there, but he just hasn't put it together yet.
He was just lining up for a really nice start at home versus the Rays, who've been struggling offensively. So I was hoping to just stream him real quick and then jettison him off my roster in the future because his next start was going to be lining up at New York for the Yankees. But he'll be folding right off my team real fast. Kyle Lewis may return Friday. Do you care?
Man, it's been I feel like he's supposed to return like 3 months ago. It's been so long. There's a lot of people who care. I don't know. He's got power. I think if you needed, a guy with some power upside in your lineup, feel free to take a shot. He's not a guy who I was willing to put down big bucks on or anything like that, or that I'm really holding out a ton of hope for. But Seattle's a solid offense. They can get some runs and some RBI numbers there if he hits in the middle of the lineup. But I don't know. I would say my expectations are in the middle somewhere where I'm not really counting on him. But if I needed some extra power, he's an okay short-term stash. But if he had another setback, I'd just be done with it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is because of his injury issues, and these injury issues, for those who don't know, like they go back a really long way. Like he was widely considered a top 25 prospect in baseball coming up through the minor leagues, but he just kept getting hurt, especially with knee issues in the minor leagues, and it really kind of wrecked his stock. He has to DH. And they've just brought in Carlos Santana. So they've been DHing Santana and Ty France. Like, does he go into a platoon when he comes back? Like, that wouldn't be super enticing. Like, he's got talent. Like, he is. If he's one of these guys, if you could take injuries off like you do in a video game, he could legitimately be like an MVP type candidate. But it's so hard to trust a guy like this that you just don't know how long he's going to stay on the field. And you don't really know what his role is going to look like first when he comes back. And then you got to think the Mariners are a team that could get aggressive at the trade deadline. They've got a ton of trade chips. What's that again? Oh, sorry. So they got Haniger coming back too. Yeah. But they also have like a ton in the minor leagues that they can trade from to add to this team. Yep, they could easily try to make a run right here, especially with some of their younger talent, like just being so good right now. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that his role is going to be big enough where it warrants, especially in a 10 or a 12 team league, warrants rostering. 15-team league, you roster a guy with a pulse and hope that he finds his way. Because if he finds his way to full-time playing time, like, he could legitimately hit 20 home runs rest of the way. Yeah, he's got 5 home runs in his last 9 games in the minors. So, I mean, the power he's got 2 home runs this season in the majors in 4 games. Yeah. Like, I mean, he's got legitimate power, and there's a little bit of speed in the profile. And he could hit for halfway decent average, like 260, something like that. Like, he could legitimately be a difference maker if he's playing every day. I just question whether that's going to happen. Yeah, I wouldn't count on him, is all I'm saying. Like, if you want to roster him and see what you've got in him, I think that's a good approach. Just don't be relying on him, is all. Carlos Rodon has a blood blister and a split nail reportedly. This is why he's not going to pitch at the All-Star game. Are you concerned? Reading, he's another guy I don't own, but reading what I saw, it didn't sound like they were overly concerned with him. And honestly, I don't think him missing a start or two is the worst for him. I'm honestly just super shocked that he's remained healthy this whole season so far. He was one of the guys that I was definitely off coming in. He's really paid off for most people who took him, especially the people who took him early when his price was really deflated. But then as we got closer to the start of the season, people started to take him, pretty much where he should have been going if he were healthy. So once he signed with the Giants, people really got excited because it's such a great place to pitch, good organization. I was not in on him. I stayed away as well because of the injury history. I don't think that this is really an issue. If it was an issue, they would have put him on the IL. But they haven't, which means they're expecting him to pitch out of the break. I think this was more about they didn't want to risk him having, pitched it at the All-Star game and then not being able to pitch for their opening series against the Dodgers, which they need to take at least 2 out of 4, if not 3 out of 4, to keep pace with the Dodgers. Yeah. So I don't think this is an issue at all. I think this is a bunch of smoke, to be honest. Okay. Brandon Crawford back to the IL with knee inflammation. Just drop him. I know. I almost didn't even put this on there because I was like, does anyone even own Brandon Crawford anywhere? My God, has he been bad this year? But it was one of the easiest fades I've ever made. I pretty much faded every single Giants hitter this year. And the only one that's making me look silly is Jock Peterson. So. Yeah, it's just they're good in leagues where you can stream every day, like in Yahoo daily leagues and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But in weekly formats, NFBC, it just unless they're facing 3 lefties or 3 righties in a row, you just have no reason to ever throw them out there, Yeah, and we'll actually get into the Giants coming up for their short season or their short week coming up too, because they do have a lot of guys with good matchups coming up. MLB Draft started on Sunday. Day 2 is today. The last day is tomorrow. you've been paying attention at all? Because I could not care less.
Yeah, I do pay attention to what the Guardians do. I follow some local prospect guys and everything, and I like to check in and see how we're doing and if we're getting the types of guys that my guys are into and everything like that. But do I know what's going on? Not exactly. I don't follow these guys in high school and college, so I'm no prospect guy for sure. I was just curious if you paid attention at all. But as you said, you really don't care at all.
I mean, here's the thing. Like you and I were talking about this beforehand, before we started recording, and I said, like, once my league start doing supplemental drafts or rookie drafts, things like that, like I'll start digging in, right? Because I need to dig in to know who to take for these dynasty leagues, these deep keeper leagues, and things like that. I just don't have the bandwidth, like in season, to deal with a lot of this stuff. And I do have one league that will start drafting in August, these guys that just were drafted. I'll when picks are coming up, I don't have a lot of picks because I've been competing in that league. And I've been trading picks to compete, though I just decided to sell for the season. But like I'll dig in and I'll learn as much as I can from really smart people in the industry. But this is just something I just don't have the time for, honestly. It's and I'm not going to pretend to know who these guys are or what, like I know like the top three guys. You got Matt Holiday's son, you got Andrew Jones's son, and then Rocker, who surprisingly went third overall to the Rangers. Outside of that, I couldn't tell you shit. So, go follow James Anderson, go follow Eric Cross, go follow, Matt Thompson over at Prospect Live. Just like go follow all those guys and ask them the questions because I don't know shit.
Fair enough.
There's a whole segment devoted on Podapalooza this weekend devoted to prospects. Eric Cross is going to be on there. Drew Wheeler's on there. Our good buddy at Baseball Pods, Chris, he's going to be on that panel. We're going to talk dynasty. We're going to talk prospects and stuff like that for an hour.
I didn't know Chris was that big of a prospect. I did know
Chris. He's a big dynasty player.
Yeah, he plays a lot of dynasties. I did know that. And
he does a dynasty 500.
Yeah, he does. Now that I think about it, talk about that stuff a lot. So that's interesting. That'll be good for him then.
So, and that's a pretty big panel. It's a panel of 5 people and me. I may even just hand it over to Eric and dip out since it's got so many people on it. But it should be a really good panel. I think it's at 1 or 2 o'clock on Saturday Eastern. So definitely come check that out. It will be a lot of fun. Let's jump into some of these topics. Let's start with some teams that have got 5 games, and maybe some players you're looking to target. Because there are going to be teams with only like 3 games. There are going to be teams with 5 games. It's really kind of uneven balance with the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Including some teams that have like doubleheaders on Thursday when other teams aren't even playing.
Right. And I always tell people to be careful when you see doubleheaders because there's a lot of guys who won't play both games of a doubleheader. You've got your guys who are going to be in there every day. Like your Aaron Judges type guys. But then, you also got the guys like, Aaron Hicks and maybe Josh Donaldson, who are probably not going to play both games. So you can pretty much take a game off of those types of guys. And you can go back to their lineup tracker and look and see which guys usually sit during doubleheaders. And it's the same types of guys. It's usually like the older, the more injury-prone guys, the guys who don't play every single day to begin with. Because they're kind of in like New York kind of has like this weird big platoon thing where there's like 5 or 6 guys who cover like 5 guys who cover 4 positions kind of thing. And so they always have like one guy who kind of sits at some point. So you just got to be aware of that because when you see 5, you might be thinking, oh, these guys are all going to get 5 games. They won't, but some of them will. And pretty much you're playing all your Yankees and your Astros this week regardless because 5 games, even 4 games, you're playing all of your main players there. But some guys to point out specifically who may be available in some leagues. I'm not just talking 15 teamers here. I'm also talking like some shallower leagues. So Matt Carpenter should be universally owned at this point. You probably should have been universally owned 2 weeks ago, honestly. But people were, because he wasn't getting the playing time, we were a little slow to pick him up. I picked him up as much as I could, but not as much as I want to, honestly. But he has a ridiculous 254 weighted runs created plus versus righties. The funny thing is, because they're only starting him versus righties, although recently they started playing him versus lefties too, he's actually got a better weighted runs created plus versus lefties. I think it's like 350 versus lefties. It's crazy. He can hit either, honestly. I think they, just because he's a lefty, they didn't want to give him time versus lefties because they have so many options as it is. But he's really forcing his way into that lineup. So if you have Matt Carpenter, I don't care how shallow your leagues are, he's out there somewhere, pick him up. Because New York's also facing mostly righties this week, looks like. Houston, on the other hand, will be facing mostly lefties. And Chas McCormick has a 179 weighted runs created plus versus lefties. So I expect him to start versus all the lefties, and I think they might play 4 out of 5 versus lefties or something like that. And some of this is guesswork. Like, we're looking at their rotation and kind of guessing who they'll have in their rotation. But regardless, they'll be facing a few lefties at least. So McCormick is someone under the radar.
Houston got 5 games, and they have 3 lefties out of 5. So it looks like Jordan Montgomery, Marco Gonzalez, and Robbie Ray. So,
and all this is still scheduled, is still subject to change. We don't know. Teams haven't set their post break rotations yet, but just want to give you guys a quick look ahead anyways. And then Oakland's going to face mostly righties. Honestly, there's really not many hitters for Oakland that I want to play, even for 5 games. Now, if you're in deep leagues, you can, though. You can play your Seth Browns and your Sheldon Noises and stuff like that. You pretty much want to play Laureano at all times. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of other value there. Maybe you can throw in an Elvis Andrus or something like that. But I'm not focused on Oakland despite the 5 games coming up.
They've got 3 games versus righties, 2 games versus lefties. That, I mean, if you want to throw Seth Brown out there in a really deep league, I guess I don't know that it helps you a ton.
No, there's not a ton of good options there, unfortunately, but I guess they're more playable than usual. Now, for teams who have 4 games, we've got Cleveland, who's got mostly righties. I think they're facing 4 righties from the White Sox, because the White Sox rotation is all righties. If Josh Naylor's out there in a shallower league that you're in, I would pick him up. He has a 155 weighted runs created plus. And for those of you who don't know, weighted runs created plus is basically like 100 being average, or like major league average, I guess. Your average player would be at 100. And then below that or above that is how much. So it's 155 is pretty damn good. And Naylor he got scratched a lot last week, but I'm hoping the extra days off here at the All-Star break, he should be good to go coming back, and he should be playing versus all righties at this point. So, and then your team, San Fran here, the Giants, they're getting mostly lefties out of their 4 games. They face, is it the Dodgers, I believe?
The Giants that face the Dodgers, yes.
Yeah, and so they're probably going to get Urias and Kershaw and Anderson, so they'll probably get 3 out of 4 lefties. And there's a lot of options in San Fran. Now, Austin Slater and Darin Ruf are the 2 big guys who really crush lefties. Slater's 153 weighted runs created plus. Darin Ruf is 155. I did notice, though, that oddly Ruff sat versus a lefty last week, and I don't know if he was like scratched because he had some kind of injury or something, but usually he plays versus all lefties. So hopefully he gets all of those games.
They'd face a bunch of lefties. It might have just been a day off. Okay. I don't think it was necessarily anything like that. They were worried about him. He usually crushes lefties. So
he's got a 155 weighted runs created plus this year. I'm pretty sure his career weighted runs created plus versus lefties is even higher. Mm-hmm. Thairo Estrada, he might be available somewhere in some shallower leagues, but in deeper leagues he'll be taken. But he's got a 141 weighted runs created plus as well versus lefties. David Villar, super small sample, but 359 weighted runs created plus. So What little lefties he's seen so far in his career, he's crushed them. So, he's a deep league option, but could be better than whoever else you're throwing in your middle infield slot. Yermin Mercedes is another guy, super small sample, but 127 weighted runs per plus. I put him on here because I think he might have catcher eligibility still in some places. I don't know.
No, he doesn't.
Okay, he doesn't in NFBC, I know, but I didn't know if you would. Like, I
don't believe he does. Okay. But I mean, he could. Yahoo. I mean, typically, if you touch a base, you get the eligibility.
Like if you league, they give you credit. So
yeah, if you played wiffle ball the weekends at catcher, you get catcher eligibility. So maybe on Yahoo, but I don't think he is. That being said, he's been really good when he's been in the lineup, and he had a really big hit the other night in that huge comeback against Josh Hader that helped bury my main event team that was doing so well. I don't know. I haven't talked to you about this. I lost 30 points this week.
Wow.
From my first place main event team. Like it was just like everything that could go wrong this week did go wrong. 30 points. I had 108 points last Sunday, and I have 78 points now.
I think we went from like 117 to 102, so we lost about 15 points this week. Yeah, it's
unreal.
Brutal week. It was a brutal week. Didn't have Hader there, thankfully. But man, Hader's ERA went from like sub 2 to 4.5. Like,
it was 278 and went up to 450.
Yeah,
in that one outing, it was unreal. Like it is so hard because it's the Giants, right? So like I'm happy the Giants. Like, and it was an amazing comeback. At the same time, like I'm like literally watching my team just sink. My best team this year sink in the standings.
That's brutal.
Because of that, and just a little bit of a power outage this week. I'm not worried about my team at all. Like obviously, if I lost 30 points in a week, I can gain 30 points back in a week. But at the same time, like just
those ratios take a while though, man. Like I'd rather lose points from if you lose points in like strikeouts or something, like that's not a big deal because you can get those back pretty easily. But man, it sucks seeing those ratios take a dive and there's like, oh god, it's gonna take a while to build them back up. Did you see Vlad put out a tweet about like a guy crawling and it's like everyone's fantasy teams crawling towards the All-Star break? It's like, yep, I feel that one, buddy.
Yeah, I need a little break from like having to look at the standings because that was a pretty brutal week. Like I don't know that I've like I was feeling pretty damn good coming into last week. You and I talked and I was in first place in my main and really looking at like, hey, this is a team that might be able to compete for an overall if I get hot at the right time. And all of a sudden it's like, oh no, now I just have to worry about winning my league because like to drop from first to ninth in a week this late in the season is crazy.
Yeah. It's just a reminder, man, this is such a grind and just don't stop. Don't give up. Doesn't matter how bad of a week you had, you can have that much better of a week the next week and you can come right back. You just can't stop though. You can't get it's frustrating, but you got to try not to get frustrated.
Absolutely.
And just keep. But so two other guys for San Fran real quick. Evan Longoria versus lefties, career 132 weighted runs created plus. He's always matched lefties. And then Wilmer Flores is kind of a budget option, career 118 weighted runs created plus hitter versus lefties. So they're not hitting lefties as well this year as they have in the past, but I would rely though, like they both have pretty established track records versus lefties that I would want to play them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm throwing Longoria into a few of my lineups this week and hoping that he knocks in a homer or two. So what about Texas? They got mostly righties.
Texas has got mostly righties. The only guy I really see out there who is hitting righties well that's going to be available anywhere is Leody Taveras, who might not be available anywhere after the last week that he's had because, man, he was crushing this last week. So 131 weighted runs created plus versus righties. Get him in anywhere. Miami also facing mostly righties. Garrett Cooper, 136 weighted runs created plus, and under the radar, if you have like two catcher leagues, Nick Fortes, smaller-ish sample, but 143 weighted runs created plus versus catchers there, or versus righties there. And then the White Sox facing the Guardians, righties. So they're going to face off 4 righties. Andrew Vaughn, if he's out there in some shallower leagues, 128 weighted runs created plus, and again another deep league catcher option, Sebi Zavala, 141 with runs created plus. And then the Dodgers are facing 4 games, mostly lefties against San Fran, but there's really nobody that's unowned for the Dodgers who's playing anywhere close to full time right now. So unfortunately, no real options there to take advantage of.
Yep. What about some ballpark factors?
So we got 3 games at Great American Ballpark with a 111 park factor. So that's your Cardinals and your Reds. So they each only have 3 games, but they are in a good park for hitting. And then we got 3 games between Boston and Toronto and Fenway with a 109 park factor there. Dodger Stadium has a 125 home run park factor, and that's San Fran and LA Dodgers, as we mentioned before. They have 4 games there. And then, as we also mentioned, the White Sox and the Guardians have 4 games at Guaranteed Rate Field, which also has a 125 home run park factor there. So, you can get your guys in from those teams where you're looking for some power.
Let's move on to some streamers. You got some good streamers going up against the A's.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much anybody versus the A's, but especially I'm thinking it's probably going to be Michael Pineda. Again, this is some guesswork here. I would assume Pineda gets the A's, where the A's are 71 weighted runs created plus versus righties and 67 weighted runs created plus at home are Oakland. So, yeah, they're bad. And then it looks like Spencer Howard is also going to be able to take advantage of those matchups against Oakland as well. And then on the other side, the Twins are going to be facing Detroit, and Bundy and Archer both face them with and Detroit has a 68 weighted runs created plus versus righties.
It looks like at least Fangraphs has Pineda going up against the Twins. Though I think it's just guesswork. Obviously, teams will reset their rotation. So you got to kind of stay up on it, especially once Thursday comes around. See who they're announcing starters. A lot of teams will announce on Wednesday who their upcoming rotation pieces and what order they're going to be in. But teams are going to reset things, especially teams that are competitive right now, because they want to have their guys get as many turns in the rotation as possible, kind of rest of the way. So,
right. Two of my favorites were Cole Irvin, who possibly gets Detroit with a 65 weighted runs created plus in away games for Detroit this year, and then Jose Quintana gets Miami, who has a 74 weighted runs created plus versus lefties. And Miami also, over the last 14 days, has a 52 weighted runs created plus overall. So they've been just horrendous lately.
Yeah, Irvin may end up getting the Rangers, but that's not a bad matchup either. So,
Rangers actually hit lefties decently, pretty well actually, but I'm hoping that doesn't happen for Irvin. But Irvin shut down the Astros twice in the last 2 weeks, so I would probably still be playing him. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I didn't pick up Irvin just because I hate streaming guys that really don't have a lot of strikeout upside. And
Irvin was available in your? Are you talking about your main or something?
It wasn't available in my main, but he was available maybe in my Barf league. I can't remember what league it was, honestly.
For me, Irvin's a keeper. I mean, he's a guy who I get that he's sort of a high-end streamer. He's a guy who I don't feel like I would want to let hit the waiver wire. I don't think he's available in any of my 15s. Anywhere.
I think he got dropped in a league where he was because he was on the IL. So I think someone just moved on from him.
Okay.
Quintana is definitely a guy I looked at. I didn't end up with him anywhere, but he was a guy I looked at just because Miami is so bad against left-handed pitching.
Yeah, they are terrible.
Let's talk about some guys who you're potentially stashing.
Yeah, so a lot of people were talking about how this was stash week because, the All-Star break coming up, it's a good time to stash some guys because you don't need to be playing guys. Hopefully you get some guys back. I saw Steven Matz and who was the...
Well, Matz was supposed to start on Sunday, but they got rained out.
Yeah, but he is back. He didn't officially make a start yet, but he did come back. And Jacob Junis also came back for the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
So those are
relief.
Yeah. Hopefully, do you see him going back into the rotation, though, after he builds up?
I think so. Yeah. I think he just wanted to get him some work in a major league game before the break. I think that's all.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, and I wasn't playing him or anything anywhere. But it looks like Domingo Germán and Andrew Heaney are going to probably be back right when we come back or soon after. Now, how long Heaney's back once he comes back is another question. He could be back for a start or two and go back on the IL, knowing him. But,
And how long Germán stays in the rotation, because if the Yankees do add to this team, they may add to that rotation. So he could be out of the job. So I mean, those are two kind of short term ones you kind of pick up and ride with for as long as you can. But you should at least have definitive answers. Either Heaney will get hurt again, like you said, or Germán will be moved out of the rotation. Then you can just drop and move on to the next guy. Yeah,
exactly. At this point, you're really not stashing guys if they're getting injured at this point for more than a week or two. And then the big hitter for me that I was stashing lately was Jean Segura. Picked him up in a few leagues this weekend. He could be back by, I think he's eligible to return end of August. End of July, but he might be out till early August, something like that. But he should be back relatively soon in the next 2, maybe 3 weeks. So he was absolutely on fire before getting injured this year. So, he's a guy who can give you both home runs and steals, and in a pretty high octane offense. So if he's out there anywhere and you have the room to stash him, he's a guy that I would definitely target. A couple of Marlins starters that are going to look like they're coming back end of July, early August. They're already on rehab assignments. Are Jesus Luzardo and Edward Cabrera. Now, what they do with their rotation, since they have Max Meyer up now, I don't know, but I don't know that Braxton Garrett. I mean, I know he had a good outing recently, but I don't know if they're going to keep him in the rotation. I think that they'll be able to make room for these guys, but how do you see that playing out?
I think they'll make room for him. I mean, the Marlins are pretty aggressive on these guys, and for the most part, they tend to work out outside of like Sixto Sanchez. So I would expect them both to get back in the rotation and kind of be key cog. Wouldn't even surprise me to see them move to like a 6-man rotation and kind of fit all these guys in.
I was worried about that. I also saw someone said, maybe it was Jake, was like, well, they'll have room for them all when they send Trevor Rogers down to the minors. And I was like, oh God.
Oh God, yeah, that's just been an absolute disaster. He looked okay in his last start, but like
he had no walks last outing, but like he still gave up a home run and like he's not a good whip, but the ERA wasn't good. But like every start, there's something wrong. Like he just never has a start where it all comes together. It's just so frustrating to watch.
He's going to be one of those guys that go back to the well on next year. Like I just think he's too talented, and I think he's gonna be one of these guys that really plummets in the ADP, and I'm gonna try and take advantage of that because I think he's gonna, I think a full off season where things aren't delayed, he can really work through things. I think he's gonna be a lot better next year.
I agree. He's one of those guys that I'm a sucker for, as long as I don't have to pay up for him.
Yeah, exactly.
And then some guys are going to be back a little later, maybe towards mid-August. Tyler McGill, who's not eligible to return until mid-August, because I was reading that he was getting closer, but I hope people realize he's not even eligible to come back before mid-August. So he cannot be back before then. And then Bailey Ober is someone who we've kind of, he's been out for a while, and we've been hearing about like him potentially. He hasn't even started a rehab assignment yet. He's playing catch. I would say he's probably not back until mid-August as well. I don't know if he's even like he's a good talent, but he's not. I don't know if he's a guy that you really want to be stashing for over a month. So
no, absolutely not. And Miguel, as much as I love his talent, I think especially with the Mets trying to be very competitive this year, they're very likely to add to that rotation. McGill could easily be a reliever when he comes back. I do think long term he's a starter, but you put that power arm in the bullpen, kind of protect him rest of the way, especially if they're getting DeGrom back here in the near future too. Like I don't think that McGill is worth holding on to be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame it. I mean, like mid-August is that point where it's right on the border where if anyone's out till mid-August or more, I'm usually just not bothering with them at this point. I will say that with McGill, they're talking about him. He thinks that the reason he got hurt was because he's throwing too hard, so he might be kind of ratcheting it back. So he might not be the same guy when he comes back. He might not be throwing that 97, 98. He might kind of come down to 94, 95, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got Rosie Contreras and George Kirby, both of which were sent down to the minors to kind of they don't want to overuse them. That they want to have them stay sharp through an inning or two in the minors for some relief outings, and then eventually build their way back up to becoming starters. But who knows when they bring them both back up? It could be.
They should both be back up really fast. Like, I would be really surprised if they're both not back up by this weekend.
Okay. All right. It makes sense with Kirby because
the
Bears have something to play for. Contreras, I was less bullish on.
This is all about like keeping guys on schedule and things like that when they're not kind of experienced and keeping themselves on schedule. They should both be back up probably this weekend, if not early next week.
And then some closer stashes. For me, Felix Bautista was the guy that I stashed everywhere. And I mentioned him, I think, last week on the pod.
Yep.
I just think there's three things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for guys who are in a situation where the guy ahead of them is likely to be traded. They're definitively the guy behind them, and they have good skills. And he's the only guy out there that I really think fits all three of those criteria. And even though Baltimore's competitive right now and they're in the playoff race, I don't think that that's going to preclude them from trading their closer because they don't see themselves as a World Series contender, and they can trade their closer and still be they can still compete just fine. So I do see them trading Jorge Lopez, and I think that he's definitely the guy behind him next in line, and the skills are very good. Now, did you add any Bautista anywhere this week?
Bautista was already rostered in the leagues where I would have been looking to stash him.
Okay.
And as we'll talk about in our next segment, we talk about kind of early season strategies and how they're playing out. I was very aggressive on closers, and so in a lot of leagues I don't need closers. However, the next guy we're going to talk about, I picked up in 2 leagues, including one of my main events, because of the chances that the Diamondbacks either trade Mark Melancon or just demote him.
And who is that?
It is Joe Mantiply, who's been the best reliever in the Diamondbacks bullpen. He's actually their all-star guy. So he's at the all-star game. I picked him up for $1 or $2. I want to say, actually, I've got my Fab results up in my main event. I picked him up for $1 unopposed.
Okay.
I also picked up Kyle Finnegan this week because Tanner Rainey is out. Did a little fab whispering of my own, and $17 bid, running up bid $17.
Wow, that's a cheap get. Was that a 12 or a 15?
The main event.
Wow, that's crazy that he won for $17. And that's your boy. You have a bunch of Finnegan shares, right?
I yes, of all of my leagues, he is my most rostered player currently. I went over to my shares page. 10 shares of Kyle Finnegan. They're gonna pay off, motherfuckers.
Just when you thought you made a mistake.
You know what's gonna happen is he's gonna get 2 saves, and then they're gonna trade him. And he's gonna be a middle reliever on the Red Sox or something like that.
I don't know. I think I looked into his contract. It didn't seem like he was that likely to be traded based on his contract. But and that's kind of the thing with. I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of people picked up Mantiply. Our friend Zach Waxman picked up a lot of Mantiply this weekend. I don't see the thing with Melancon is I don't think he's good enough to be traded. Like, I don't know that there's much of a market for him, but I also don't think they're going to demote him. Like, honestly, I know he has a 5 ERA and a 1.5 WHIP, but like his estimators have much closer to like a 4 ERA pitcher, like 3.99 xERA, 4.1 SIERA. I don't think he's been bad. I think he's had some bad luck because small sample size with relievers, but I think Melancon, I don't see them removing him from the role or demoting him or anything like that. I think you have to hope he gets traded for Mantiply to get.
I'm just taking the gamble. I just don't know how many guys. You know, we talked about this a little bit last week. Like, outside of David Robertson, like how many closers are actually going to be traded at the deadline?
No, I get it. There's not that many options out there.
Jorge Lopez and Melancon are like, or Jorge Lopez and David Robertson are two of the ones that I think most people think will be traded. But outside of that, like, there's not a lot of these guys.
Yeah. Trevino might be traded. And like Zach Jackson might be the guy behind him. But he's got like a 7.5 walk per 9 rate. I can't roster a guy like that.
Well, Danny Jimenez is coming back too.
True.
So,
and Oakland's just so bad that the upside there is
it's not worth it. Like, it's really not. Like, I just don't. No. I don't see it as. I mean, Batista is somewhat interesting because the Orioles have been better.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people thought they were going to be. But like Oakland is so bad. Like it's. I mean, this is like historic levels bad type thing.
Exactly. And Robertson's like the guy who is like the most likely to get traded of everybody.
Yeah.
The issue is that the next guy in line is Givens, and he might be even more likely to be traded than Robertson. So, and then behind him, you've got Chris Martin, who we've talked about.
Could be traded as well.
Who could also be traded. He has an option, I think, for next year or something like that. But then he said that his shoulder is barking. So, because he's given up some runs lately. And so the next guy after that, I think, is Scott Efros, who has actually been really, really good. The issue with him is, so he's a side armor and he throws like 91. He doesn't have typical closing stuff, but he doesn't walk guys. His K rate is respectable. I think it's like somewhere around 9 K per 9 rate. But I don't know. It just feels like 3 guys have to be traded or passed over in order for Efros to get saves. And I couldn't bring myself to even put any bids on it. So.
I didn't even dip into that situation. I don't know what the Cubs lineup's going to look like after the All-Star or after the trade deadline. I mean, they may end up moving Patrick Wisdom and Ortega and Wilson Contreras. Like, they can move a lot of that offense, and it could be just as bad as Oakland's offense, which means not a lot of games. I mean, they could always go back to Rowan Wick. Like, I don't know. Like,
I doubt it, but it is a possibility, I guess.
What is the thing managers in Major League Baseball like more than anything when it comes to a closer?
Yes, but he's not
previous experience.
Correct, but it's not like we're talking about Craig Kimbrell here. We're talking about a guy who has like 15 career saves, so he's not exactly a proven closer. He has closed some at the major league level. He's not by any means like that closer.
You're thinking logically, and that's not how Major League Baseball managers think.
No. But I'm saying you have to have that closer label like the managers care about that label. He doesn't have that label. He's just like getting some saves isn't the same as being known as a closer. So I don't think
they could also just go to like being like a by committee type situation.
Yeah, that's probably most likely to happen, honestly, if they move some of these guys. But honestly, just the Cubs situation didn't seem really worth going into. Batista's really the only guy I really like. I think Mantiply is a fine other stash too. But outside of those,
throw a dollar dart, like don't overly invest in these guys, because the one thing we know is we don't know shit. Guys we think are definitely going to get traded are not going to get traded, and guys we had no idea were even on the block are going to get moved.
Yeah.
There's obviously some ones that like seem pretty logical that are going to happen, but there's also going to be like there are articles every year. Oh, guys who didn't get moved at the deadline or surprise move at the deadline. Like, just take cheap darts. Like, don't like overly invest in the next man up, because we just really don't know.
Very true. So the philosophical question I wanted to ask you today is kind of what draft strategy did you come into the season with, and how is it working out so far? And if your strategy probably should differ from league to league, but you might have some of the same some of the same overarching strategies in each. Like, we're talking about whether you waited on closers or took early closers, for example. So you mentioned earlier that you went early closer, like me.
Yeah.
It's been a tough road so far for that because a lot of guys have gotten hurt so far or haven't performed well. We've seen Chapman lose his job. A lot of guys have missed time. We just saw Hader get blown up, even like the guy who was by far looking like the easily the number one. And he probably still is the number one closer out there right now. But man, a 4.5 ERA from the guy who you were hoping to be like carrying your ratios a bit,
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, have guys performed as well as? I mean, the whole Hader thing, like, that is just a really one bad outing. Like, that's all it is. Like, he was
Literally.
elite until Sunday or Saturday. Like, I mean, he was
But it all
absolutely.
goes to those ratios, man. You still got to take those on your team.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about that. Like, he's gonna be fine the rest of the way. Like, he's.
But if you knew you had a 4.5 ERA from Josh Hader, would you have drafted him where you took him? I guess that's the question.
How many saves does he have?
Yeah, I mean,
Like, yeah, I would have. Like, I mean, and here's the thing, like, because people are going to make the argument that, hey, you could have waited and gotten Gregory Soto or gotten Scott Barlow, both guys who kept their job. But really, this has been one of the more stable years at the closer position that we've ever seen. Yes, are there some jumbled jobs? Absolutely. But a lot of those jumbled jobs are the jumbled jobs we thought were jumbled coming into the season.
Yeah.
Like, things have not, changed over in the way that we thought they would, or that we thought might happen. And so, like, I think if you paid up for saves, you probably got some pretty good saves. If you didn't pay for saves, you probably got some pretty good saves because things have been pretty stable for the first time in years.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned Hendricks got hurt. Chapman lost his job. Could get it back in the second half. We'll see. Raisel Iglesias has been iffy, but, you know, still getting saves. Clase has been great. Edwin Diaz has been phenomenal. Kimbrel, despite the uneven results, like, the underlying stats show that he's been pretty damn good. Kenley Jansen's been really good. So I think, you know, and even guys that I was a little afraid of, like Romano, has kept his job. He's been struggling a bit lately, but, you know, guys like Gallegos, those were bad investments. You know, if you were investing in Gallegos, you know, there was
I told you it was a bad investment at the beginning of the season. I mean, if you were following along, like I said, the ones we thought were jumbled, the Twins won, the Reds won, the Mariners won, even the Giants won. Even though Duvall has been somewhat, you know, in charge of that role, you know, he's, you know, given it up a few times, things like that. Like, there have been most of the jobs that we thought were safe have been safe. It's really been the ones that were kind of up in the air to begin with that have been up in the air and continue to be up in the air. And I think this is one of the reasons why I like to pay for saves, because I feel a lot more confident that guys like Hendricks, guys like Hader, guys like Clase are going to hold the job the whole time. And unless something, you know, bad happens, I mean, Chapman, he was holding the job until he got hurt. And, you know, and he may get that job back at some point once, you know, he's back to being kind of 100%. He may not. Like, that may end up being the one job. But if we go a whole season and we lost one main closer, or one big name closer, like, that's a pretty darn good season.
Yeah, because even I was going to say Knable, but that was even not I didn't have in the super.
I didn't either. I said there was a lot of risk to Knable, you know, coming into the year. So, like, as far like, they definitely have some misses. They're gonna, you know, there always are misses.
Some misses.
But I feel pretty damn good about my closer ranks this year.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, this is in 15 teams especially, I'm always willing to pay up for closers because it's just not worth trying to spend the whole rest of the year spending all your fab trying to pick up closers.
The only big miss for me at two big misses for me at closer. Kyle Finnegan, I thought he would win that job. And Dylan Flora got hurt before the start of the season and never was able to really get that role. Yeah,
I think I only had Floro in the in the pod league with you guys because he fell a bit. He wasn't a guy that I was super into. I mean, I didn't think he'd hold down the job there.
Will Smith in early drafts, but like that.
That was
that one hurt.
I was avoiding that situation too, thankfully. But that was unfortunate if you drafted him.
But Kyle Finnegan coming back to save the day, baby.
Yeah, and those DCs that you drafted Finnegan in, he's going to pay off for you.
No joke. 10 leagues, baby. 10 leagues.
But some of them you just added recently, right?
I think 2 of them.
Okay, so you drafted.
I'm looking right now. Let's see. I added him in a main event, and I added him in TGFBI, and I added him in Barth. So I added him in 3 leagues. So I had him in 7 DCs.
Okay. And so whatever struggles your team has, it's not been with saves for the most part. And so we're both still in the early closers strategy wise.
Absolutely. I don't think that changes. And I think, and we're going to talk more about some of these other strategies, but I think in general, I think this is a year where any strategy could have worked. You just had to construct your team well behind those strategies. Like, I don't think I think there's some people who are going to push back on pocket aces because there are some aces that faltered and things like that, or haven't been as good as you thought they were going to be.
That's every year though. And the thing is, like, the pocket aces strategy, it's the highest, it is the highest bust rate of all those early strategies but here's the thing, like, pitchers are always going to be volatile. So it just, like, you can take too early. You might have one that busts. Like, the bust rate is something like 40% in the first couple of rounds from the last few years. And I mean, it's like somewhere between 30 and 40, I think. It's just a lot of guys end up busting, but when you hit, those could be massive hits is the other side of the coin. But yeah, I mean, we got Giolito, we got Walker Buehler. I'm not sure who else is going in the second round. Like,
I mean, Max Scherzer's missed some time.
Peralta was a rounder, I believe. I don't know if Aaron Nola's really been worth it, but I mean, Cole Burns, Woodruff missed time, but he's been good back. Same with Scherzer. Bieber and Urias, I guess, have been solid.
Urias hasn't been as good as you thought he was going to be, considering where you were taking him.
Yeah, I mean, I was never taking him where he was going. It was kind of easy, but yeah. Okay, so speaking of early on, did you have a focus on pitching or hitting, or were you trying to be balanced early? The first like 3 or 4 rounds.
I tried to stay balanced. I mean, I also, depending on where I was drafting, I kind of, in times I was drafting in the middle or the back, I kind of let the draft fall to me. I'd come in with a plan for the most part, but I was willing to kind of make changes as the draft board fell. But for the most part, I wanted to leave my first, let's say, 6 rounds with 2 starting pitchers, at least 1 closer, and then 3 hitters. Trying to stay as balanced as possible. And for the most part, I think it's worked. I mean, there are obviously landmines, right? Like, you look at my Park League team and, like, I hit every landmine. But for the most part, like, I don't think I had bad strategies in terms of what I came in with. I think if I had a real fault this year, is I don't know that I prioritized power as much as maybe I should have. I think I got a little bit too caught up in making sure I got starters, making sure I got speed. And I think if I had prioritized guys like Yordan Alvarez, guys like Mike Trout, maybe, and then worried about speed a little bit more later on, because you could have gotten, some good speed options later on this year. That might have worked out a little bit better for me, but overall, I'm pretty happy with the strategies I've employed. In spite of the fact I'm not having an overly successful season, I think I could still have a profitable season, but not as good of a season as I thought I was having coming out of drafts.
Okay. See, I don't know. For me, the speed options are so much more difficult to hit on than the later power options. And the thing about the speed options is a lot of the times they are shitty hitters who then end up losing their jobs or whatever. I mean, like, if someone was, say, banking on Miles Straw, well, how's that working out for you? Like, he has like 10 RBI on the year, and he's now hitting 9th and not playing every day. So, if you hit on the correct speed options, sure, but that's so difficult to do sometimes. Like, I feel like if you don't get that speed early, you're really getting behind the 8 ball. And I don't know. I think I'm just going to keep taking speed early where I can. Now, I'm looking at some of my drafts where I took like guys like Albies, and maybe I wasn't getting enough speed with a guy like that. Like, even though he got hurt, even if he didn't get hurt, was 20 steals going to be enough to start with if I'm going to go for that kind of a guy? Like, as opposed to going with a pure power hitter like an Alvarez or a Trout or, even Betts or Devers or something like that. So, maybe if you're going to be taking speed early, you have to make sure you're getting a significant amount of speed.
Yeah.
But like you, I want to stay balanced early because, like you were saying, the draft opens up for you if you keep yourself open. So if I'm balanced throughout the draft, I can take whatever the draft gives me because I don't know. Every draft is different, so I never know what the draft is going to give me. So if I can use both a starter or a hitter, then when the best value drops to me on the board, it's also something that I can use. It's not like, okay, I've got all these starters early, and then another starter drops to me where I need a hitter. Now I have to take a hitter instead of that pitcher again. So it's always good for that reason. Like that is the key to taking advantage of your drafts is to stay balanced where you don't need to take anything. You can just take whatever the best value on the board is at your pick.
And I completely agree with that. Like I maintain that if you stay balanced early on, it leaves you with more directions you can go later on. And I don't want to close off a direction in my second, third round of a draft because I didn't address. Like if you don't address speed at all, then you have to go address it with bad players or players you may not want to draft later on. So, and that was one of the reasons why I stayed away from the Mike Trouts and I stayed away from the Yordan Alvarez's. I think that, and I'm, ultimately, like, you look at like my main event's a really good example where like Scott Genstead was able to get Yordan Alvarez at the 2-3 turn in that draft when I was drafting third. And part of it was I wanted a starting pitcher and I wanted a closer. And so I took Hader and I took Aaron Nola. What I should have done though is I probably should have taken Yordan and then took Hendricks and then waited on starting pitcher. I think I'm going to be more apt, and this is something I've done in the past, to being willing to push that starting pitcher into that 4th, 5th round if a guy that I don't really love doesn't fall to me in the second. And that's one of the things I did wrong this year. You look at my other main event, I drafted Trevor Rogers because the guys I wanted didn't fall to me. And I went, well, I need to take a starter here. No, I didn't need to take a starter here. I needed to take a player that best fit my team. And had I, passed on Trevor Rogers, maybe I would have gotten a Dylan C. Slater. Maybe I would have gotten, a different guy in the 4th, 5th round, as opposed to taking Rogers, who's, pairing Rogers with Giolito has been a disaster for the team.
God, and that's what I did in my Ultimate League. That was my first 2 pitchers there. I guess who my number 3 was? Yep, Eduardo Rodriguez. So that league very much struggling with pitching, but from a lot of times with this year, what I was trying to do is the only pitching I was trying to get early were closers, and I was trying to pair those with good hitting. And then come the 4th, 5th, 6th rounders, I saw a lot of upside in those starters and the Ceases and Manoahs and McClanahans. Like I wanted to hit that hard and get a couple of starters there, 2 or 3 starters in that range. And I think that's what I really like moving forward is maybe don't worry about getting a starter in the first few rounds, but then hit several of them. And a lot of times those guys become aces, those upside guys who just haven't pitched enough yet to get there, but they've got the skills to do that. And then if you take 3 of them and 1 or 2 of them hit, now you've got your ace and you didn't have to use a 1st or 2nd round pick on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said it in draft season. I was like, there's going to be at least one team this year where I don't take a starter in the first 5 or 6 rounds. And I didn't do it. Like I totally could have built a pretty damn good starting rotation out of my ranks after the 5th or 6th round. And I didn't do it because I had that feeling, oh no, I should be taking a starter. Fuck what you should be doing. Put together your best possible team, build your best puzzle, and trust yourself. Like if you have a guy who you think is a 7th round talent that everybody else is drafting in the 10th round, like take him in the 7th, take him in the 8th, and trust that guy's going to be there for you because you've done your homework. Like, and I just didn't do that. Like, and I think that's again, my biggest mistake this year has been my biggest mistake last year, which is I didn't trust myself enough.
Yeah, it's you're the one that's putting the money on the line. You're the one that's going to be reaping the rewards. So you should be the one that you're trusting. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be, still listening to what other people have to say and taking it into consideration. But ultimately, the decision is always yours.
Absolutely.
I see a lot of people talking about that kind of stuff, and it's like even if other people talk you off of guys, it's all on you. It's your fault for letting them do that. And you also have to think about when it goes the other way, when they talked you off of someone who ended up not working out too, because we always remember the times where we were right and then we changed, we didn't take our own advice, but it goes both ways.
Great question from the chat right now. How would you rate your fab work in the first half of the year? Rate it 1 through 10. Who is your best pickup this year?
Ooh, I mean, in the main event, because there's a lot of leagues that I couldn't say, but in the main event, it would probably honestly be Brandon Drury is probably my top pickup, like in terms of need and impact that he's had, and just like he's been a mainstay in my lineup, and just he was like a $40 pickup, something like that. I honestly think I've done pretty well in fab in most of my leagues. In Glarf, I've done horrendously. I threw down huge bids on Abrams and Brash early, and also AJ Pollock, who somehow isn't even playing every day. So in Glarf, I would rate myself like a D minus. In most of my other leagues, I would say somewhere in like the B plus range. But my biggest issue is that I'm poor pretty much everywhere. So that's my concern.
And so, like for that last reason, for me. Because I am poor everywhere. I'm absolutely poor. Because one of the things I haven't done in the past that I started doing, the 2020 season taught me a lot. Having to play in such a short season and be really aggressive in not just fab, but in my cuts, really, really benefited my overall game. And I started incorporating a more aggressive fab approach and a more aggressive drop approach last year. And I've really taken it up. I think I've been too aggressive this year, unfortunately. And maybe I need to find the happy medium between the way I used to do things, the way I've done it this year, because I'm around $100 in fab, like in my main event that is competitive. I've got a little bit more in my other one that isn't as competitive, and hopefully maybe I can.
Everywhere I'm poorer than you, so
yeah. So, but what I've done really well this year is I have churned over the bottom part of my roster continuously, and I've done a really good job with it, especially stringing pitchers, picking up kind of the next guy. Like my best fab pickups of the year. I mean, I was really aggressive on Nolan Gorman. He's been pretty decent this year, even though the underlying skills are a little bit scary. Tyler Wells, I was early in on, and he's been really, really good. Nick Pivetta, I picked up after kind of his first shaky starts and people dropped him. And until this last week, he was really pitching well. But ultimately, I think what I've done well with fab this year is I have not been afraid to cut people. I have not been afraid to be aggressive with guys that either aren't producing or are injured. Like I just jettison off my roster. I'll let someone else spend the money on them. That's fine. Guys like Robbie Grossman went quick off my roster. Guys that weren't performing or guys, that got hurt. Jack Flaherty, once he came back, got hurt again. Like he was gone immediately. Like I'm just, I've been a lot more aggressive with my cuts, and I think that's been a real difference for me. Now we'll see how it works towards the end of the year, because for instance, Scott Genstad is in both my main event leagues, but in the one where I'm competitive, he still has a crap ton of money, even though he just finally spent a crap ton of money this week to get Max Meyer. But he still has way too much money. He still has like triple what I have. So we'll see if that comes back to bite me in the ass. But I've been pretty good about picking up $1 players. Like I've, outside of that $17 Kyle Finnegan, I've been picking up $1 players, and I think I've been doing a pretty good job just kind of streaming in and out these $2 players.
And the thing that people have to realize is having dollar bids, even just dollar bids, is still huge in September. Like if you have any money to spend, that is a huge, huge, huge difference. There's a huge difference between $10 and $0. Like,
Yep.
don't throw all your money on any one player, any until the final week, honestly. Like, those bullets in your chamber, even though they're not big bullets, are still worth a lot because you can get guys for $1-2, you can get guys that can make an impact, and not taking zeros is massive. I will say I forgot. We also picked up Bertie in the main, so that was a
Birdie has been he's going to be a league winner for a lot of people.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
for one place where I didn't have enough speed really, and that instantly brought us up into like the top 3 or 4 in speed.
For instance, in that main event I keep referencing, Scott I think he's been in first place a lot of the year. He's in second place right now, but he's gotten 23 stolen bases from Birdie. And that is the difference between third place in stolen bases and 11th place. Yeah. So like he's gotten 8 points off of that one pickup.
Yeah, he's he's had a monumental effect on teams so far this year. But
absolutely. Any other things you wanted to talk about in terms of strategy?
Well, so you mentioned like a couple guys that you faded because of injury risk, and granted, we're only at the halfway point that they didn't work out. But I will point out that there's, and I have to go back to my preseason list that I don't have on me right now. But there's a lot of guys like for instance, Jacob deGrom that I faded that completely worked out to fading them. So you have to think of it both ways. You missed out on some guys who have been good so far, but you've probably also missed out on landmines that other people didn't. That other people hit. So. You have to evaluate honestly on both sides and say, okay, was the process wrong or was just the results wrong? Because there's a big difference. We're going for good process. The results aren't always going to match, but if we have good process, then the good results will eventually follow.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like I stand by, in spite of the fact I'm taking a massive L on Verlander. I'm probably taking a massive L on Rodon. I'm probably going to take a massive L on Kershaw. Now, I say probably because they still need to, they're still only like 80 to 100 innings deep. They still need to get to 140, 150, 160 for me to be like, okay, I did fuck this up. But like you also could have ended up with Mike Clevenger. You could have ended up with DeGrom. You could have ended up with like Syndergaard stayed healthy, but he hasn't been great. Like he's not what you thought you were getting. Chris Sale, he's, even though I drafted him, he's a guy like, again, he got injured. It's a different injury.
Such a fluky year though. Like that wasn't even. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Mitch Haniger is another one that.
Think about the guys that people stashed the whole year. Your Shane Bazes and your Lance Lynn's. Like, oh my God, the returns are horrendous on that.
Think about guys like Lance McCullers, who's still not back. Jack Flaherty, who came back and is now gone. Yeah. I think this is, the reasons why we don't do this. Like it's, and there's going to be misses, right? Like there's going to be years where guys stay healthy. And that's going to give people the reason to go back to that strategy the following year. God bless them.
And you're going to see those people with their victory laps, like imagine fading blah 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 this year, and I'm like, oh God, here we go with this crap.
I don't care. Like I mean, it's like I I want they can continue to because they're not going to talk about the ones that blew up in their face. They're just going to talk about the ones. I'm totally fine taking L's as long as even if my process was wrong. And here's the thing, like this is, because some people are going to say, well, I'll take an L, but my process was right. I'm okay taking an L when my process was wrong and admitting it because it's going to teach me to be better. Like I'm not going to make that same process mistake next year. But I think in this scenario, I don't worry about my process being wrong because I don't think my process is wrong.
And that's the key, not having ego about it and not being like, well, no, like you can make excuses if they're legitimate, but don't do it just because you can't admit to being wrong. Like always admit to being wrong when you're wrong, because then it makes you a better player. And you, like you said, you can learn from it. And then, next year you won't make those same mistakes.
you and I will be spending a lot of time in October and November talking about process and what we're changing, and
Sure.
we will dive deep onto what we got right and definitely what we got wrong, and we'll kind of challenge each other to reevaluate our processes as we start prepping for drafts in February, March.
Yep. All right. So I know you got to go soon, so I'm going to get a quick Earth update. Glarf's still dominating. Barf still getting dominated by everybody. Slarf is up to second still. They've kind of separated a bit. Ray Butler is still leading, so pretty much everything's the same. Jeff Erickson, though, came out of nowhere up all the way to third place, so that was really a big mover at the end of the first half.
The fantastic. I mean, Barf just I can't. There's nothing I can do with my Barf team. Like I'm continuing to work and add, and but like when I waited all year on Chris Sale and Lance Lynn, and Chris Sale got hurt, and Lance Lynn is. I wish Lance Lynn would just get hurt. So it's just been a brutal season for me in Bart. Picked up Kyle Finnegan, Alexis Diaz this week. Maybe I'll get some saves from those guys to help me a little bit. But like, there's only so much I can do in Bart. But I love Ray Butler. Ray's such a great dude. So it would be cool to see him win. Jeff Erickson, kind of on the Mount Rushmore of this industry.
Jeff is also a cool dude, by the way. We like Jeff.
Yeah, no, I'm saying Jeff is Mount Rushmore of the industry. Like he's one of the OGs of the industry.
I love how much he loves Earth too. Like he's really into this, and that like I told him because we talked in Vegas, and he was like promoting it a lot, and I said, hey man, I really appreciate that. Like I love this league, and I want everybody else to have that same passion for it, and he definitely does. So I'm very proud to have people like that representing Earth.
So are you guys doing a football league? Because we're doing a football league. We've done a football league. It's a lot less competitive. It's more really for fun. But
I don't know. I'd have to ask them.
Yeah, we're doing a football league. We'll be hopefully getting together in early August at the Rec Room in San Francisco, and drafting our football league.
For us, because we're so spread out, it's a little tougher.
Do it online.
We could.
Yeah.
I gotta see what they want to do.
I mean, maybe you may have people who just don't care about football, but
never crossed my mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we do football as well, so thought I'd throw that out there. Reviews. Speaking of Anthony Gialdi, who was the person who asked that fab question, he gave us a review not too long ago. We shouted him out last episode, but just wanted to thank him again. Got another review from Jay Capron at JAYCAPRON. A must listen if you play fantasy baseball. Insightful, entertaining. Add this pod to your rotation. Hey, Jay, thank you very much for the review. If you give us a 5-star review on any platform, we really, really appreciate it. Really helps us out a lot.
Yeah.
And we will definitely shout you out on the episode following once it shows up. Really, really appreciate those of you who've come out and given us reviews recently. Like I said, that definitely helps us out. Any update on Dr. Dave?
Yeah. Did you notice that there was a new Dr. Dave who came back? He used my exact profile picture, and it was like, and I think he might be gone already. Like I saw.
No.
I think
do you have
gone.
A screenshot of this?
No, I don't think I do. Let me see.
I had not.
And it happened on the same day that as he's watching this Anthony Gialdi, happened on the same day that Gialdi learned how to create new Twitter accounts because he didn't know how. It was like trying to teach your grandpa how to use Twitter. It's like, okay.
Do you remember what the handle was?
Yeah, it was like I thought it was Dr. Dave. I don't know, but it was gone then. I think like they followed a bunch of people and then it was just gone. So I don't know. They tweeted some stuff though. Because I remember telling someone because someone thought it was like legit advice, and I said don't listen to the troll account. And then like the next thing I know, it's gone. So
I have not seen this at all. So no, I had no idea.
I just assume, knowing how into it you are, you're just doing daily Dr. Dave searches, and I figured you already knew about it, so I didn't even bother telling you.
Yeah, you know what? It's one of those things where I've been so busy. Anthony Gialdi saying it is not him. He is not taking credit for this one. I've been so busy that I have not been on Twitter nearly as much as I usually am. With both of my kids getting COVID, the kind of back-to-back months, and the amount of work I just put in general, like I haven't been able to like keep up with that kind of stuff. You should have sent it to me. I definitely would have interacted with whoever it was.
Do daily searches for Dr. Dave. I hope not, anyways. But
yeah, no.
I know Gialdi saw it though, because I already accused him of it earlier.
I've been pretty much blocking a lot of these random troll accounts that have been popping up. I'm pretty sure most of them come from the same podcast, but a new one pops up about every 2 to 3 weeks, and I've just been blocking them.
I know who at least 2 or 3 of the new ones are. It's from the same group of people. I'll say that.
Yes, the Dr. Dave one to me was funny, because it was just there's clear parody of you.
There's some creativity there. The bio was pretty funny and everything. But like they just didn't do enough with it. Like they could have really taken advantage, and they probably didn't have time or whatever. But it could have been much bigger than it was.
Anthony believes we need Dr. Dave in these trying times. Yeah, maybe he comes back at another point. Who knows? Like it's
I don't know that anybody likes it more than you, but Gialdi is way the fuck up there.
You know what? My favorite one that I've seen recently, and I know it's been around for a little bit longer, but I just noticed it in the last month or so, is the Roto Narc one. It's the picture of Vlad Sedler with just aviators on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you didn't know about that one?
I did not know about that one. That's hilarious to me. Yeah. Not anything that they've tweeted, because I honestly can't even, I haven't even, looked at what they've tweeted. But just the picture of Vlad with the aviator glasses on. Like he's an undercover cop or something like that.
Yeah,
and the mustache. There's a mustache too as well.
Vlad actually has a story that makes that even funnier. Like, did you know that he almost was? It's actually on the episode that we had him on, High Stakes Heat. I won't give away too much, but let's just say that Vlad almost thought he had to move because he was going to get killed by a group of people for being a narc. That when he wasn't a narc.
I have not heard this.
Yeah, so it is interesting. I would encourage people to look up that episode of High Stakes Heat with Vlad, with the road guy.
I will go back and check that one out. I do like Vlad's stories. Vlad's one of my favorite people in the industry.
Does anybody not say that about Vlad?
No, Vlad's. There's a lot of really great guys in the industry, but Vlad's up there as one of the best, and a really, really successful player. Really good analyst as well, but just a genuinely good dude. I really like him a lot.
He is.
So, love him. All right, Dave. Where can people reach you? What are you working on?
They can reach me at RunDMcD on Twitter, and talked to Jake the other day, and fingers crossed, he says he's returning this Thursday to High Stakes Heat. So
let's go.
I know. I have notes from the last month of topics I want to talk about. So I'm gonna make it's probably gonna be a 6-hour episode. Just warning you guys now, because
let's go.
We've got a lot to say, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm gonna do the notes, and I'm gonna hold him to it, guys. I'm gonna do my best, anyways. As long as I can prevent him from falling asleep, I think we're gonna get it in finally.
There you go. Good. I could use it. I honestly have not listened to a fantasy baseball show in a few weeks. I've been binge listening to a couple history podcasts.
Okay.
And so I need to go and check out some more fantasy baseball stuff over the break. So hopefully you guys will give me a nice long episode to go listen to. You can catch me, of course, on this podcast, TGFBI podcast, and the Sleeper and the Bus podcast. I'm writing daily over at Fangraphs. Potapalooza. We're going to be doing live streams from 10 a.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday this week. Some of the best people in the industry joining me, including the aforementioned Jake Hallisker is going to join me for an NFBC panel that includes Jenny Butler, Batflip Crazy, Todd Whitestone.
Like, I mean, don't know his name, do you?
Huh?
You still don't know his name, do you?
Oh no, I know Toby's last name, but I don't. He doesn't put it out there, so I don't put it out there.
Okay, I just thought he said
yeah, I know. I had Toby's last name. Come on. So there's going to be a starting pitching panel with Michael Simeone, Nick Pollock, Paul Sporer, Eric Samolsky. There's going to be a fantasy ethics panel with Steve Gardner, a nerd stuff panel with John Legeza and John Anderson and Tim Connick. Yeah, that one's I just calling it nerd stuff because I don't even know what they're talking about. Like I just hand it over to John. And I'm like, hey, handle nerd stuff because I'm not smart enough to ask you guys questions.
John are both very, very intelligent people who do really good analysis work. So that'll be good.
So there's just a ton. We're gonna do a whole relief pitcher panel with Greg Jewett, Tim McCullough, Mike Carter, Doug Dennis. There's just a ton of people.
What do you do with Govier? Are you just giving him a mic and telling him to just talk about something?
Govier can't make it. Govier is going to be hiking that weekend, big hiking trip. So he was bummed that he's not going to be able to make it. There are a few people who they couldn't make it for whatever reason. I kind of threw it together a little bit last minute this year. We'll see how it goes. But for every $1,000 raised, I'm going to give away a TGFBI spot to a raffle winner. We're already at like 500 something bucks. Or pretty close to $500, I think. So last year raised $8,000. Would love to get even somewhat close to that this year. Everything's going to Big League Impact. I don't take a dime of it. All going to charity. You can get a raffle ticket for every $1 you donate. You get a raffle ticket. JustinMasonFantasy@gmail.com or at Justin Salinger on Venmo. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can catch the replays on YouTube and on Twitch. You can also watch it live on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. That is going to wrap us up for this episode. For Dave and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.